A thin layer of frost clung to the mailbox outside when the caseworker set the final warning on the coffee table. Her voice stayed flat, almost detached. 30 days remain. Custody review on November 30th. Daniel Cole sat in his recliner, shoulders heaving with each breath. At 640 pounds, even shifting his weight made the chair groan softly beneath him. The porch light outside flickered again, once, twice before catching a weak, steady glow. Evan hovered by the doorway, backpack hanging loose from one strap. A neighbor passed on the sidewalk, tugging his jacket tighter against the cold as he glanced toward the house. "Some folks don't change," he muttered, not quietly enough. Daniel's jaw tightened. Evan's eyes flicked up toward the high shelf where a wooden toy truck rested under a thin film of dust. Daniel followed the look, then turned away, gripping the worn fabric of the recliner until his knuckles whitened. "This is the board's final notice," the caseworker continued. "You'll need to show documented progress. 15 pounds lost. The ability to walk 20 steps without stopping. If those conditions aren't met within 30 days, the custody review moves forward." The words slammed into him harder than the cold seeping through the windows. Daniel forced a short, breathy laugh. "Doctors love their drama," he said, trying to sound casual, but his voice scraped thin. The caseworker didn't answer the joke. She simply nodded, gathered her folder, and headed for the door. The heater clicked on, rattling faintly. The moment she stepped outside, a gust of wind carried a diner jingle from the radio down the street. "Stay warm out there, Maple Ridge," before the door shut again. Silence spread through the living room. Daniel stared at the warning notice, then pushed himself forward and reached for the armrest, trying to get up. His legs trembled before he even shifted an inch. He grunted once, then gave up, sinking back deeper. After a long pause, he called out, "Guess I should see what we got for breakfast." He pushed himself sideways and opened the refrigerator door. Cold air spilled out. Shelves of leftover soda cans and convenience meals stared back at him. He grabbed the nearest container, then stopped, listening to his own breathing echo in the kitchen tile. Behind him, Evan stepped closer. "Dad?" he asked quietly. Are you okay?" Daniel closed the fridge with his elbow, shoulders shaking from the effort. He forced another half smile. "It's fine, buddy," he said. "Everything's fine." Evan didn't look convinced, but he nodded and backed toward the hall. His sneakers squeaked softly against the floor as he disappeared around the corner. Daniel lowered himself back into the recliner. The countdown sheet the caseworker left behind fluttered in a faint draft. Day 0. 30 days left. Denial sounded almost like hope as the morning light inched across the room until it didn't. Daniel braced one hand against the hallway wall, the cool paint pressing into his palm as he tried to take another step. He'd managed 5 already, each one leaving a deeper ache in his knees. On the 6th, his leg buckled. His other hand shot out, catching the corner trim before he slipped lower. His breath rasped in the narrow space. "Dad, wait here." Evan scrambled beside him, gripping a plastic cup half filled with water. His hands shook just enough to spill a few drops onto the hardwood. "I'm fine." Daniel panted, though the hallway seemed to tilt. The heater clicked on somewhere in the house, humming weakly. Cold wind rattled the window near the kitchen, making a loose blind tap against the frame. On the refrigerator door, a neon sticky note fluttered a little from the draft, "Walk with me." The rounded letters were unmistakably Evan's. Beside it, the countdown sheet glared back. Day 3. Daniel pushed himself upright again. His fingertips left faint sweat marks along the wall. He shut his eyes for a moment, waiting for the dizzy wave to pass, then leaned forward for another attempt. His chest tightened. A sharp drop in oxygen left him blinking fast until the hallway returned to shape. "Dad, please just sit a second," Evan begged, voice cracking. But Daniel forced his foot forward. The moment weight settled on his knee, pain shot upward. He grunted and sank onto the nearby chair, the wood creaking under the impact. The house fell quiet, except for the heater's thin sigh and the distant groan of wind curling around the siding. Daniel wiped his forehead and pushed himself toward the bathroom scale. The digital screen flickered before settling 6 at 39.2 yelps. It felt like a joke. A single pound dropped, maybe two depending on the timing. He rubbed his face, fingers trembling. Evan hovered by the door, chewing his thumbnail. The phone buzzed on the counter. Daniel reached for it, still breathing hard. "Yes, this is him," he managed. The doctor's voice came through crisp and unemotional. "Mr. Cole, I'm reviewing your initial numbers. If there's no documented progress, the final warning proceeds. The system will intervene for Evan's safety." Daniel swallowed. "I'm trying," he whispered. "Trying is good," the doctor replied, "but it must be measurable. We'll check again soon." The call ended with a sterile beep. Evan stepped closer, his voice small. "Dad, you're doing your best." But Daniel didn't answer. The room dimmed as clouds slid over the last of the morning light. He leaned forward, elbows on his knees, hands clasped tight. The refrigerator hummed behind him, steady and indifferent. Maybe he'd be better without me. He hadn't meant to say it aloud, but the words slipped into the quiet like they'd been waiting. Evan froze. His eyes glistened instantly, a bright red rim forming around them. "Don't say that," the boy whispered. Daniel lifted his head, but whatever explanation he'd meant to give dissolved in his throat. Evan backed up a step, shoulders curling inward. Outside, the porch light sputtered once and went completely dark. A draft brushed through the house, rustling the countdown sheet on the fridge, until it fluttered like a warning someone didn't want to see. Eleanor knocked lightly before pushing the door open, her scarf still dusted with cold. "Daniel," she said, easing her voice into the room. "I'm here because I care not to judge." Daniel shifted in his recliner, wiping his palms on his sweatpants as if to hide the tremor in them. Evan sat cross-legged on the rug, going through an old wooden box. A moment later, he lifted a wooden truck. Its back wheel chipped its red. Paint faded. Eleanor's eyes softened. "That's one of yours, isn't it?" she asked. "Looks like the ones from the Christmas fair 2 years ago." Daniel's breath hitched. "Yeah. I used to make things. For the kids' table at church." He rubbed the back of his neck, heat rising under his collar. Eleanor smiled gently and motioned toward the door. "Come on, let's grab a booth. Fresh air won't hurt." They walked into Maple Ridge Diner, the door chime ringing softly. Warm steam drifted from the espresso machine, and a waitress passed by with a coffee pot offering automatic refills. A bright sign near the counter read, "Thanksgiving Service, No 24. Evan slid into the booth beside Daniel, clutching the wooden truck tight. Eleanor set down her folder, opened it, and tapped one of the pages. "You've lost 3 pounds. That matters." Daniel looked away, cheeks flushing. 3 pounds isn't much." "It's movement," she replied. "And movement counts." He stared at the silver napkin dispenser, its polished surface reflecting his rounded shoulders. Before the accident, he said quietly, "I made toys for the church kids every December. Even when money was tight, even when I was tired, I liked seeing their faces." Evan nudged him gently with his shoulder. Before Daniel could say more, a burst of laughter came from outside. A pair of teenagers stood on the sidewalk, one holding up a phone. They were watching a short clip, Daniel stepping down from his porch earlier that morning, his face strained, one hand gripping the rail. On the screen, bold text flashed, "He'll quit again. Evan stiffened. He squeezed the wooden truck until it creaked. Daniel froze, heat flooding his ears. Shame slammed into him harder than the cold they just walked through. Eleanor's expression hardened. She shut the folder firmly. Daniel, she said, listen to me. This is why we need structure and a plan. She laid the papers flat on the table. 30 days, 15 pounds, 20 steps. This plan helps you survive the final warning. Daniel stared at the form's chest tightening. Evan leaned closer, whispering, Dad, you can do it. After a long moment, Daniel picked up the pen. His signature came out shaky, but it was there, dark ink on white paper. Eleanor gathered her things. As she stood, she gave him a steady nod. Day 12 starts tomorrow. I'll be back. Wind rattled the diner window as the doors swung shut behind her. Snow drifted down in thin, hesitant flakes as Daniel stood before the 3 clinic steps. His breath came out in sharp bursts, clouding the air. Evan slipped his small, cold hand into his father's. At the doorway, Eleanor waited, coat pulled tight, watching him with quiet steadiness. That morning, Daniel had made it all the way to the mailbox without stopping, a tiny victory he held on to now like a lifeline. But as he looked up at the steps, his confidence wavered. A church volunteer leaving the building paused when she saw him, recognition flickering across her face before she walked off quickly, almost shyly. The moment stung, yet something in her expression left a trace of warmth behind. The clinic sign buzzed softly. Mobility compliance evaluation today. A bell chimed from the church 2 streets over. Daniel swallowed hard. Evan squeezed his hand. You've got this, Dad. Eleanor nodded once. 1 step at a time. Daniel lifted his foot to the first step. The wood felt cold under his shoe. He pushed upward. Step 1. His knee trembled, but he held. Step 2. His balance lurched. His vision flickered for a second. Evan moved closer, voice thin but steady. You're okay, Dad. I'm right here. The caseworker approached, clipboard in hand, her tone clinical. A parent must be able to ensure basic safety for a child. Today's assessment determines that. The words cut a sharp, undeniable truth. Daniel steadied himself, planting both feet firmly. His breath burned in his chest, but he refused to look away. He raised his leg again. Step 3. For a moment, everything went silent, except for the crunch of his shoe on the frosted wood. Hope shook him more than the cold ever could. Let's go inside, Mr. Cole, the caseworker said. Before Daniel could move, Eleanor stepped forward, placing a thick envelope in the caseworker's hands. Before you finalize anything, she said, you should see this. Out of the shadows near the walkway, several members of the Maple Ridge Church appeared. Quiet, hesitant, but present. A woman in a knitted blue hat stepped closer. He built toys for our Christmas drive, she said softly. Even after his accident. We didn't forget. Inside the envelope was a community support letter, 42 signatures, each name written with conviction. Daniel blinked, stunned. He hadn't known anyone remembered. Evan tugged at his sleeve. We're still in this, right? Daniel nodded hard, breath shaking. Yeah, buddy. We are. The first Sunday of December arrived quiet and pale, the kind of morning where breath hung in the air longer than a thought. Coffee steam curled from Daniel's mug as he stood on the porch, and for the first time in weeks, the porch light above him glowed steady. Someone, probably Evan, had replaced the bulb before dawn. In his other hand, Daniel held the wooden truck. The edges had been sanded smooth, the old paint replaced by a deep forest green. It felt lighter now, like it had shed something heavy along with him. From inside the house came soft footsteps. Evan stepped out, jacket half zipped. You fixed it, he said, touching the truck gently. Just cleaned it up, Daniel answered. He shifted his weight, testing his balance. His knees still ached, but he could manage a few steps on his own this morning. Small victories counted now. Eleanor's car rolled up quietly. She walked toward them with a thin folder in one hand, her breath mixing with the cold. Final decision came in this morning, she said. Daniel swallowed. Evan moved closer. You lost 12.7 pounds, Eleanor continued, which isn't the 15 required. She paused, letting honesty settle. Then her voice softened. But the board reviewed your progress, your documented steps, and the community letter. It mattered. They voted to keep custody unchanged. Daniel exhaled slow, shaky, like something inside him finally unclenched. Evan grinned, cheeks pink from the cold. He placed the wooden truck on the porch rail with ceremony, as if crowning the morning. Still strong, Dad. A neighbor passing by hesitated at the sidewalk. Think he can keep this up, the man murmured, not unkindly, but loud enough to hear. Daniel didn't flinch this time. The question didn't crush him the way it once might have. He took another step onto the porch, hand loose at his side, breath steady. I think I can, he said quietly. Somewhere beyond the houses, the church bell began to ring, an easy rolling sound that drifted through the crisp air. Daniel looked at his son, and Evan looked back with a pride that warmed more than the mug between Daniel's hands. He was still a 600-pound father, but the morning didn't feel heavy anymore. And as the coffee steam thinned into the December light, he understood something simple and steady. Hope carried weight too, just lighter, and finally his to hold. The porch light glowed steady against the early winter air, and the wooden truck, sanded, painted whole again, rested beside Daniel's warm cup. His breath rose gently, no longer pulled by fear, but by a rhythm he was finally learning to trust. Change hadn't erased the weight he carried yet. It softened the road ahead, step by steady step, as Evan's quiet pride lingered beside him. And in moments like this, who decides what a last chance truly means? If this journey stirred something familiar in you, feel free to share your own story below. And stay with us if you'd like more quiet moments like this.